So now we're going to get into the cleanup phase. This is the part one of our strategy in helping to balance your body systems so that we can not only eliminate systems, but prevent them and actually overcome the condition in general. And a lot of that has to do with environmental triggers in general. And that's why we focused a lot on mastering your cycle and epigenetic factors. And when you went through that list and answered questions about your parents' behaviors, where you lived, where you grew up, or maybe where they worked or where you worked, or things that you're exposed to will come into play into this video and in terms of tapping into environmental triggers that are essential to uncover and eliminate from our immediate environment so that we can get to the root of the multifaceted components of what is actually causing our bodies to be inflamed and imbalanced. So hold on tight. There's a lot of information. Take a lot of notes. I'm here for you on our Q&As when you have questions for me, and sit back and just listen to the video over and over again. It's pretty long, so have something to write with, have something to do, get rid of distractions, and I'll be with you shortly. So now we're going to get into the strategy phase of the Heal Your Womb program, and that's starting the cleanup phase. And we have a lot going on, as you see. It's not just one thing, you have too much estrogen in your body and that's what's causing the hormonal imbalances. There are so many organs and systems at play, and it's a delicate balance to start healing them and balancing them and nourishing them so that you can overcome the symptoms. But we first have to start with the multiple factors that are causing these imbalances and these symptoms and these hormones to get triggered and cause this inflammation in general. And we first are going to start with environmental triggers, because environmental triggers are clear and have been clear to be 90% of what causes inflammation, not just in hormonal conditions or hormonal imbalances or for women. This is throughout the spectrum of disease, chronic disease like diabetes, heart disease, arthritis, things that are showing up in our society are caused by inflammation. So what is causing inflammation in the first place? Well, part of it is environmental triggers and even cancer, okay? And so it's been proven by research and numerous studies that this inflammation is caused by 90% of it is toxic environmental chemicals that we are exposed to in the environment. And this topic, it's kind of the elephant in the room when we talk about health and wellness and the medical industry in general. Doctors, physicians, holistic practitioners, healers, whatever you want to call it, in healthcare, where if you're trying to help people with their bodies and their wellness and their state of mind, you come from a good place. And there are some dark sides of larger part of the system. When you look at the system as a whole, there are some dark sides of every system, correct? Like there's dark side of businesses, there's dark sides of medicine as well. And modern medicine has come a long way, but again, it is based off of science, and science is based off of chemistry. And a lot of the vaccines, a lot of the medications, a lot of the things we're going to talk about in environmental triggers are some of the things that are just not discussed in a clinical practice. Because if you go to your GYN or your general practitioner, you have 15 minutes to talk about how you're doing, and you're going to walk out with a prescription for some kind of medication that's just going to supposedly calm or help your symptoms. but it's never going to address the root causes. And 90% of the root causes that we're having these diseases and manifest are these toxic environmental chemicals. And it's not because your doctor isn't aware of them. Some are not. Some are just too busy. They just have a practice, they see patients, they do what they can from a good place. And then on the weekends, they go and enjoy their family or go play golf. You know, they're human, and on a larger scale, it has to be tackled from different entities. And in the end, the more information you know, the better decisions you're going to make for you and your family in the long run. Because in the end, you can't depend on the system. You can only depend on how you're going to react to it. And so the more informed you are about this larger system at play and what's causing everybody to be sick, that nobody's really talking about, then you're going to be ahead of the game. All right? So a lot of these chemicals come from things that we purchase ourselves, and consumers really don't know because of labeling, misguided labels, a lot of manipulations and loopholes. And these environmental chemicals are shown to wreak havoc on not only our hormonal system, but our entire bodies. And a lot of them comes from the beauty products. We could start there because there are so many. So I've chunked it down into the most that we can actually control in our lives. And so when it comes to skincare and beauty products, these companies know, you know, when we're young, you're impressionable, you have pimples, you're going to try everything to get rid of them and hide them. And you can go and buy cleansers and toners, and, you know, you want to cover it up, so you're going to have foundation. And maybe you just watched your mother go out, you know, on the weekends and look beautiful with her makeup and her hair done and all dressed up. Or maybe you have older sisters that go out, and, you know, it goes on in our society that women love product and women love their makeup, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can be beautiful. Everybody does it, okay? But there's a place where when you look at the beauty industry, they use very, very cheap ingredients that are very harmful to our health, and they build up in our tissues. And when you look at it, this stuff builds up. You start with a cleanser, a toner, a spot cream, a serum, a moisturizer, eye cream, oil, and SPF. That's just for your face. We're not even talking about the makeup, the lipstick, the hairspray, okay? And that's why the average woman puts on about 515 hormone disrupting chemicals per day. That's average. There's women that do more. There's a lot of women that do less. And so think about it. If you're putting on foundation and your mascara and your lipstick, and your SPF, and that's after you've showered and shampooed and conditioned and you used your body wash, that's why it's really easy to build up 515 hormone chemicals on your skin per day. And these chemicals have been proven, okay? They've been proven. We don't use proof in medical science very, very much, but there's just overwhelming research that these chemicals increase the production of certain hormones. These are these xenoestrogens that we really do not want in our bodies, or the androgens like testosterone. We don't want those in our bodies because they're synthetic, and if we don't produce them, we don't need them. And it actually decreases the production of others, mostly progesterone. A lot of women are deficient in progesterone. They also imitate hormones, and that we go back to those xenoestrogens. They mimic, they pretend to be estrogen, but if you're not producing it, it doesn't belong in your body. And your liver and your other hormones, when they need estrogen to function, they get a little rewired, they get confused. So then you end up with hormone disruption, right? And then a lot of these chemicals, they actually tell your cells to die. So free radicals, we don't want them. Those are the things that cause aging. They cause wrinkles. A lot of them are coming from these anti-aging creams because of the chemistry, the toxicity of the chemicals they're using. They're telling your DNA, your cells, to die prematurely, and that causes aging. A lot of these chemicals compete with essential nutrients. They compete with magnesium, iron, iodine. Those are essential for proper hormonal health. And in the end, what happens is that these chemicals really are not broken down completely, and they recirculate back in your system and mostly in your fatty tissues. And with women, that's around the hips and definitely around the breast tissue. So there are thousands upon thousands of chemicals that we could talk about. And I think that to tackle that would be a program unto itself. But I've listed the 5 top most prolific that are in most products everywhere. And these are the ones that have been heavily studied. There's a lot of research that these are causing a lot of damage, and they are just in most products in general, okay, that are not conscious and everywhere on the shelves at conventional grocery stores or even places like Sephora or Ulta. They are filled with these types of products and with these chemicals in there. And it's not a regulated industry. And even if it is regulated, there's a lot of loopholes, and these companies have the budgets to go around them, and they do. So let's start with phthalates, because phthalates are very dangerous. And a phthalate, you'll never see phthalate on the label. If you ever read a label in fragrance, shampoos, or body washes, anything in terms of beauty, or anything that has a smell to it, even toilet paper, that is called fragrance, and it's another code name in the industry for it's filled with phthalates. And these companies are not required to disclose what kind of chemicals are making up the fragrance. And phthalates last in the environment. They have a shelf life of forever. And even if we do get rid of them in terms of we don't use them in consumer goods anymore, they're still going to be in the soil or in the water because they just have a shelf life that will surpass humans, I think. And so phthalates are dangerous to the thyroid. They lower thyroid function, and they mimic estrogen, and they're no good in our bodies. And if you've ever been around somebody that loves perfume, any perfume, Marc Jacobs, Coco Chanel No. 5, any perfume, and you've gotten dizzy or it's really strong and there's some kind of reaction, you are smelling or you have a sensitivity to the phthalate, and you should, because it affects your hormones in general. Parabens are very, very common in any product that's water-based. So lotions, shampoos, anything that contains water in it has to have a preservative. And most of those preservatives are in the form of parabens. And parabens are dangerous because they pretend to be estrogen, those xenoestrogens that end up in your body and end up in your fat tissue, and then you become estrogen dominant. A lot of companies know that the consumers are getting savvier. They're understanding a lot of these products are toxic. So you'll see a lot of very commercial products like L'Oreal or Revlon, Tresemme, things like that are very, very common. They'll say paraben free, but they've just switched over to another type of preservative because every water-based product has to have a preservative, okay? And so that's the choice you're going to have to make. You can avoid parabens if you avoid water-based products. And so this heavy metals in here surprises a lot of people because it's usually in different categories, but there are a lot of heavy metals in makeup, especially in foundations or eyeshadows or any kind of makeup with a lot of bright colors and a lot of shininess, things like that. They have a lot of heavy metals. And so think about it. If your foundation, which has some
maybe aluminum or some cadmium or copper in it is sitting on your skin for maybe the duration of your work. So that's about 8 hours, let's say 12 hours from home to home. In the middle you're working, you've just absorbed 12 hours of parabens, phthalates, some heavy metals, and some other stuff. And over time, this will build up in your tissues. Okay, and heavy metals, they bind with hormones and they lower sex hormone production, mostly progesterone. And they definitely interfere with that delicate balance, that HPA axis that we talked about in the overview of your adrenal response, your stress response, and how your brain is responding to stress. These interfere with that. So a lot of anxiety, a lot of mental health and headaches, they can be a side effect of too much heavy metals in your system that really are not leaving your system. Okay, and that could be a result of years of other environmental triggers, but definitely makeup has a lot to do with it, especially lipstick. Red lipstick has really extreme levels of lead. That's how they get the pigment. And I read in one research study that women who wear red lipstick every day for a year have been tested, and they can have up to 20 pounds of lead 20 pounds of lead in their system just from red lipstick alone. Okay. The other one is benzophene 3. And this one is in sunscreens. And everybody is wearing sunscreens because they're scared of the sun, they're scared of aging, they're scared of skin cancer. Well, guess what? Benzophene has been associated to cause skin cancer. And the sun doesn't give you cancer. The sun actually protects us. It's all these chemicals that we've been told and kind of scared into, put in our lifestyle to protect us. It's like a marketing machine. Everybody's wearing sunscreen. Your makeup has sunscreen in it. Your kids, or you can't leave. You can't go to the beach without sunscreen because you feel like you're going to burn. Yes, you may burn, and you have to go to the beach after 2 to 3 to not burn. But these sunscreens are filled with PABA and benzophene 3 and other UV filters that are very dangerous, and they've been shown to cause developmental and reproductive effects and birth defects, and they definitely disrupt the thyroid. And so I've given you a list of all of these offenders, and so look into that as we go along in this training. Okay, and then lastly, placental extracts. Now you may think, well, I definitely don't buy those, but those are hidden. Those are definitely hidden in a lot of the anti-aging creams and moisturizers and serums that are popping up now. And they come in different forms because of a lot of loopholes. They don't have to say estrogen and progesterone and placenta. They can have, collagen polymers and things like that. And placental extracts is exactly that. It's from, either cow placenta or animal placenta or human placenta. And clearly they contain estrogen and progesterone, but a lot of it, if it's an animal-based placental extract, which you really won't know, they're going to have a lot of synthetic estrogen and progesterone. And this is another kind of dark side of the medical industry, because if you've ever delivered at a hospital and you never asked to keep your placenta with you, or you've had a hysterectomy, that is filled with estrogen and progesterone, right? So hospitals are in the business of making money. And one of the things that a lot of consumers don't know is hospitals sell human waste to companies, especially cosmetic companies. And placentas are top of the line because they're filled with collagen and all these nutrients that you should actually be ingesting right after childbirth. And the cosmetic companies buy them from hospitals and they use them in anti-aging collagen-based skincare. And the same goes with uterus. A uterus, if you've had a hysterectomy or partial, some of that tissue is sold to a lot of bio companies and cosmetic companies for that purpose too, of anti-aging creams. And so just always be cautious of ingredients. So this is something you can control. The first thing you can do is decrease your exposure by choosing conscious brands. And these are popping up everywhere. Like I said, the consumer is getting savvier, and thank goodness. But so are these corporations in terms of their marketing, and everybody can call it organic and non-GMO, and in the end, that really won't mean anything. You really have to look at the brands and their history. And these are some of my favorite kind of indie brands. And there's no reason that you don't have to stop wearing makeup, or you don't have to stop, shampooing your hair, or things that you like. We have beauty rituals and it's fine. Honor it. But we do not have to put ourselves in danger. And so the first thing you have to do is decrease your exposure. And Grateful Body Skincare, he is a chemist out of Berkeley, and he creates herbal products that they're very simple, very indie based, and they're just really good for your skin. And Beauty Counter and Arbonne are MLMs. You can even have a business selling this, and both Beauty Counter and Arbonne make their employees, or their contractors, whoever they sell, their sales reps, they really educate the sales reps so that they can educate the public on this. And are they perfect? Are any of these perfect? No. I mean, the only way you're really not going to get exposed from a chemical or a skincare or beauty factor is just not wearing it, or just wearing some organic facial oil, and that's it. But you can limit your exposure by just being conscious of this stuff in your makeup and how it's affecting your hormones and your beauty rituals. So we can be smart about that. Another one is Elixir. That's actually mine. I do more herbal and tincture based and more balms, because really, no product is really perfect unless you're dealing with facial oils or essential oils. And Anne Marie Gianni is another one that is very herbal based. And if you love your perfumes, and you really always just want your room to smell good and you want to smell good, really think about switching from any department store or high-end perfume to essential oils. There's a lot of essential oils rollers that are really good for you and your skin and your state of mind, actually, because essential oils help to relax and calm the mind as well. And in the end, if you love lotions, if you love your moisturizers, just know that there will always be a preservative. Grateful Body Skincare, he's a chemist, and he created his own preservative out of 100% herbs. And so if you want to go in that direction, I advise you to check him out. But just know that every water-based solution, moisturizers and lotions and creams and serums, they all have some kind of preservative. And so if you just don't want to avoid it, facial oils are amazing. You can have rosehip oil or jojoba oils, and there's just so many beautiful facial oils that are anti-aging in itself, because they're more protective than most moisturizers are anyway. So I wanted to take a step back and backtrack a little, because heavy metals, we touched on that in terms of your foundations, liquid foundations, and lipsticks. And those are heavily infested with a lot of heavy metals in the form of lead, cadmium, copper, and aluminum. But heavy metals play another role, and we have to eliminate them from our environment in general. And lead, aside from the fact that when you hear about lead, you're thinking about neurological damage that causes brain damage, okay, in high levels. And some people really don't understand that maybe if you've developed a tic or a tremor or some kind of flutter, it could be a result of lead or other heavy metals. But in terms of your hormones, they do lower your sex hormone levels, mostly progesterone. They interrupt the HPA axis. Now, Mercury may come in different forms. If you have amalgams from your teeth from dental work, especially from the early 80s and the 90s when they were still using this stuff, you have mercury in your mouth, and every time you're eating something, little micro nanoparticles are coming out into your system and into your digestive tract. So we want to limit as much mercury as humanly possible. And so we don't want that in our makeup or in our beauty routine, because mercury in the end has been shown to disrupt menstrual cycles because it disrupts ovulation. Now, let's go back to the mastering your cycle when we were starting to learn how to cycle sync. And remember, day 1 of your period to day 14 is when estrogen starts to grow, and that means follicular stimulating hormone is increasing, and it needs to get there so it can release that fertile egg. And then LH, luteinizing hormone, takes over from day 14, 15 to day 28, okay? That's how you ovulate. That's how you have a regular period. When there's a disruption in having irregular periods, there could be an underlying mercury component to it. It won't be all of it, but there could be. If you have a genetic history where grandpa or grandma or your mother was, in the fishing industry, or you come from a high fish diet, or you come from a lineage of factory workers or mining workers, heavy metals pass through our DNA. So DNA not only is your blueprint for your blue eyes and brown hair, heavy metals pass in our DNA, in our genetics. So that's why that exercise in thinking about your family and what kind of occupations and where you lived and what exposures they were involved in, that comes into play in terms of your health and what you're struggling with now. Because if anybody in your immediate family was ever exposed to some kind of heavy metal, it could be an underlying cause of your hormonal imbalance, your fibroids, your endometriosis, even infertility. Mercury is heavily associated with high infertility rates, and nobody's talking about this, because if you have tried for 3 to 6 years, most likely people think IVF. So you go to your IVF doctor and they don't ask you about your have you ever been tested for high heavy metal or heavy metals? They don't. They just tell you, this is the process. We're going to regulate your cycle. We're going to use these hormones. You're going to inject this, and in day 3, you're going to come in and we're going to inject you with ink. Mercury has been associated with higher levels of infertility in women, and especially in men. If men have a low sperm count, there is a correlation with higher levels of mercury in their system. So given that if you may be dealing with some sort of infertility, this could be one of the underlying components, okay? And arsenic is another heavy metal that's everywhere in the environment, and this one disrupts insulin. So remember how we have to balance your blood sugar, we have to balance cortisol, insulin. Well, if you have too much arsenic in your system, either coming from a beauty product or your environment or a certain food, it's going to be difficult to balance blood sugar if that offending trigger from the environment is still in your system. So a lot of women with PCOS have high levels of arsenic in their system as well. And another one that's not on this list, but it's really important to mention, is cadmium and copper, because women with endometriosis have been researched to have higher levels of cadmium and copper in their pelvic area and in their systems in general. And these underlying triggers all contribute to that inflammation that's causing all of these hormonal imbalances. But in the holistic realm, in the alternative realm, a lot of the research in endometriosis is based off of metals and these toxins. And when these lesions are growing, these poisons basically are coming out of the uterus, because the uterus is meant to be a safe and clean environment for life. And the uterus is smart, so it's leaching out these poisons. It's forming in these scar tissues, these lesions, and once they're out of your uterus, your immune system is reacting to a foreign invader. It says, "What is this? We have to get it out of here." React, and that's where the autoimmune component comes in, and we have this disruption. And if we don't deal with heavy metals on a basic level, then we really won't get to that place of overcoming the condition in general. So all of these have a lot of basic components in heavy metals, and it's really, really eye-opening to people, but it really needs to be discussed because they're everywhere. Modern medicine uses a lot of them in their pharmaceuticals and in their vaccines, and they need to be discussed as to how they're affecting women on a larger scale and the population in general. So that leads us to feminine products. We all know them. We've all grown up using them, right? These products are considered medical devices by the FDA. They're not regulated, okay? Medical devices are not required to disclose ingredients. Think about it. Have you ever really seen the ingredients in Tampax tampons? Other than cotton, I really didn't know what was in them. Any product not labeled organic contains phthalates. The fragrance, it masks the odors. It contains mercury. It's not added, but it's a byproduct of the bleaching process. That bleaching process is attributed to dioxins. Dioxins are a huge environmental concern. They're everywhere in the environment because everything's white. Our toilet paper, our paper towels, cotton towels, everything that's bleached is white. Even white paper. We need dioxins. It's huge. They bleach the pads and the tampons. And dioxins have been heavily researched and heavily partnered with the rise of endometriosis. That inflammation, that toxicity is causing the inflammation that causes the endometriosis to get even worse. Now, cotton is a GMO product if it's not organic cotton. So all these pads and the tampons are cotton-based, right? Well, Monsanto manufactures a lot of the cotton, a lot of the GMO cotton production in the world, most likely. And they do have a product called Roundup. It's called glyphosate, and it is a proven hormone disruptor and terminal cancer-causing herbicide. It's a weed killer. Roundup is sold in Home Depot. You can get it right now if you went to Home Depot. And glyphosate is just damaging to the environment and damaging to our bodies as a whole, and it is proven to cause cancer. The cotton that is used on these pads and definitely in tampons is soaked in glyphosate. So if you have a history of using pads and you have a history of reproductive problems, the vaginal mucosa absorbs everything and all of the beneficial bacteria down there, and aside from absorbing the toxins and later further on causing problems that we may be dealing with right now, have an underpinning root cause of all of these, and glyphosate is a main contributor. And the last one is rayon. A lot of the pads are synthetic rayon. And when you read on the label, the warning label that has toxic shock syndrome, it's because a lot of the women are allergic to rayon, and that's what causes the toxic shock syndrome. And pads that are associated with rayon on them have dioxins as well because they are a byproduct of rayon. So this is an easy fix because you can choose not to buy these products, because in the end, they're just going to increase the inflammation. They increase the toxic buildup that causes the pain, and definitely the growth of fibroid tumors, because you have these toxins that are in your uterus, in your reproductive tract, that are feeding the viruses and feeding everything that is in the feeding the estrogens, the xenoestrogens that are causing these tumors to grow. And you're feeding the inflammation that causes more lesions if you have endometriosis. So in the end, choose organic, fragrance, and rayon and dioxin-free brands. There are, the good news is there are many to choose from. This is just a very, very short list, but this is a very easy, quick fix. 7th generation, Natura, Rael, Cora. There are so many. They are even sold at Target that the demand has just gone up for this. So this is a very easy fix in your menstrual routine if you haven't already done so. And another word about tampons and dioxins and the bleaching process. A lot of women who have come to me with infertility and trouble conceiving because of endometriosis, before we even get into the meat of the rest of the program, just by eliminating their tampon use and switching to cotton brands and switching their toilet paper to non-bleached toilet paper, they have decreased their symptoms and their pain and have gotten pregnant really quick, even before we got into the meat of the problem. So dioxins are heavily associated with reproductive problems and especially infertility. So now that we are making strides and changes in our beauty routine, our beauty rituals, and our skincare, and our makeup, and in our feminine hygiene, let's look at your larger environment, which is your home, right? So cleaning products and gardening products contain numerous carcinogens and endocrine disrupting ingredients. And the problem with most of the cleaning products, and especially gardening products, is they don't have to disclose their ingredients on the labels. If you ever looked at Tide or conventional laundry detergents, there's not a lot of labels or not a lot of ingredients on that label. And that's why the worst offenders are laundry detergents and air fresheners. Air fresheners contain a lot of VOCs and a lot of toxic chemicals and phthalates that you spray in the air to freshen your room, and you're inhaling those and they are laying on your skin and they're just creating a toxic environment. And laundry detergents, a lot of them are based in formaldehyde solutions. And if you know anything about formaldehyde, it's a chemical that's used to preserve dead bodies in morgues, and you really don't want that in your laundry detergent, okay? And they don't have to disclose it. And you're going to see glyphosate, Roundup, a lot in cleaning products and gardening products because Roundup is a weed killer. So it's sprayed everywhere because if you're a gardener or if you're a conventional gardener or you have a lawn somewhere, you want to trim the weeds. You don't want weeds in your garden. And so glyphosate, that's why it's sold at Home Depot. But again, the more you spray glyphosate, the person exposed to it can have an accumulation of toxins in their body over time. And chronic inflammation, chronic diseases from people who work in the industries that use glyphosate and spray them, their inflammation, like rheumatoid arthritis or their conditions, are not because of genetics. There's a chemical component to them. And it's been proven that Roundup glyphosate causes terminal cancer in people. And the other one that is really not talked about anymore, because DDT was banned in the 60s in America. And DDT comes from World War II, and they didn't know what to do with it after the war. And so they used to spray this as an herbicide because it's a weed killer. And DDT is also used to on bug off or repel for mosquitoes. And so the spraying of DDT was banned in the 60s because after Vietnam, a lot of the veterans were coming back. And in Vietnam, Monsanto sprayed Agent Orange all over the country, all over the soldiers, everybody. And there was a lot of birth defects, a lot of reproductive harm. There were a lot of cancers, these strange cancers. A lot of the soldiers came back with neurological conditions that weren't being addressed. And a lot of research went into what happened, and a lot of that research turned out that Agent Orange, which is basically DDT, was a huge factor, and that's why it was banned from commercial use in the 60s. But the problem with DDT, my friends, is that it has a shelf life of forever. It doesn't go away. It's still in the environment. And although it's banned in America, what these corporations have done is they sold it to underdeveloped countries. So in countries that are growing crops like India and South America, all of these underdeveloped nations who are now having larger farming industries are spraying DDT like it's rainwater. And the problem with spraying is that DDT is in the air. It flows through the air. It doesn't go away. So even though it's being sprayed in India and you don't think it has anything, it's far away from America, it will eventually get here because it has a shelf life that's longer than us, and it's in the air. So we breathe it in, it settles in the crops, it settles in the tree, it settles in the water. And so we want to just be aware that all of these in, gardening and keeping our homes clean, there is a price if we're not cautious about it and conscious about it. And DDT is a huge component of fibroid formation because it also passes through the DNA. If you've ever known any migrant workers or factory workers or coal mine workers, or definitely if you come from a family of migrant workers, they have used DDT or some kind of Roundup, some kind of glyphosate and pesticides. And these pesticides, all of them, the herbicides, the heavy metals, the pesticides, the dioxins, the bleach, everything, these pass through our DNA and they are manifesting in reproductive harm. Now, the good news is that you can always clean up your internal environment where you live. You can make better decisions in terms of the brands you buy. Seventh Generation and The Honest Company, to name a few, are very conscious, and they'll state, does not contain triclosan and other forms of chemicals that have been shown to cause reproductive harm or any harm in general. And so there's a lot of products, and I've given you an entire list, so look that over. But in terms of your own routines, whoever's cleaning your home, or if you clean your home, just be conscious of it. Because if you ever want to take a relaxing bath and you have to clean the bathtub, if you're using scrubbing bubbles or Comet whitening to whiten up the bathtub, yes, you rinse all of that away and your bathtub's clean, and you may not think that any of the residue will hurt you, but it will, because you've just inhaled fumes. There's bleach that really doesn't go away for a long time, and now it's in the water supply. So that water supply is going into the oceans. So you see how all of this goes back to you because you are part of the environment. You're not separate. So we have to all do our part in balancing our own ecosystem and our own health and cleaning up our own health. But in doing so on your level, you are also impacting on a bigger level. All right. So now that we're going to clean up our beauty routines, we're going to clean up our immediate environment, let's talk about how there are other ways that these toxins get into your system. And that is through the water, definitely. You bathe in it and you shower in it, and you may not be drinking tap water, but it's around and you wash your hands with it. And if you do drink tap water, this is what's in our water. Glyphosate, again, Roundup, it's a weed killer. And atrazine, these are known pesticides and herbicides that cause endocrine disrupting and cancer and other neurological conditions. Heavy metals, again, there's definitely lead, mercury, aluminum, copper, you name it, it's in your water. There's radiation in the water. We can't avoid it. It has a shelf life that's longer than us. Radiation is in the water. There are pharmaceutical medications, especially high levels of birth control. Birth control is a fat-soluble molecule, so that means women are urinating it out who are taking it. And if you're drinking tap water, and if you're a man, you're taking a dose of birth control eventually, because fat soluble doesn't dissolve in water soluble, so it's in there. Prozac, all the medications that are either put in the toilet or people are urinating out all of these medications. And if you drink tap water, basically you're getting a dose of pharmaceutical medication. There's definitely chlorine in it, and there's bacteria and viruses. That's what the chlorine is supposed to kill off. But there's also something called perchlorate, and it's literally rocket fuel. And aside from just knowing that there's rocket fuel in your tap water, on a side note, it interferes with thyroid function, aside from everything else you could think that rocket fuel wouldn't be healthy in your body, right? And definitely there's high levels of fluoride in your water. And this is very confusing because municipalities in America, they don't have to put fluoride in the water. It's voluntary. But most decide to, and there is absolutely no benefit to fluoride. Fluoride is a known neurotoxin. And fluoride was put in the water, I think in the 40s or the 50s, after it's a component of World War chemicals. And they just didn't know what to do with it. So they marketed a lot to the Dental Association, and then they ended up putting it in the water to protect our teeth and in toothpaste. And fluoride is a known neurotoxin. And the Nazis actually put fluoride in the water in the concentration camps to actually sedate the Jewish population that they enslaved even more. And fluoride is dangerous because it displaces iodine. And when you have low iodine, that's going to lower your thyroid hormone. So you see how the thyroid epidemic and the endometriosis epidemic and all of these epidemics with our health that we're hearing about more and more, it's not because it's in the press more, it's because more people are having it because of all of these environmental triggers. And if you think, well, okay, well, who drinks tap water anyway? I don't drink tap water because I know it's a little, it tastes horrible and I know it's not good for me. So I drink bottled water. Well, bottled water is no better than tap water. It's just purified tap water, and I don't even know what they're purifying, but it's basically purified tap water plus the plastic. The World Health Organization found that 90% of bottled water is considered a microplastic. So on top of drinking everything else that I have listed previously, you're getting a dose of plastic. And so what happens? The plastic is BPA, and BPA is a known endocrine disruptor that has been banned. In America, you see BPA free everywhere now because they banned it in baby toys and baby bottles because they knew that there was a link to neurological development with the heating a bottle with BPA leaching into the milk. And so BPAs have been banned, supposedly, because now that there's BPA free, manufacturers have switched to using BPAS, and that is even more dangerous than regular BPA. And if you're going to start seeing BPAS free, there's BPA MOJLNK. I mean, you can pick any letter of the alphabet and there's a BPA for it. So all of this plastic packaging, even if it's not bottled water, but in juices, in mostly everything, especially that you don't really know the shelf life, especially in a liquid, you don't know the shelf life. So wherever it's been shipped from, or if it's been sitting in a hot room, there's some component that the liquid is warm, and when BPA is warm, the plastic leaches into the liquid. So you're drinking that as well. So it's not just so much bottled water, but if you think that you're not free from the tap water concerns because you switched to bottled water, let's reconsider that, because I know that when I go to the gym, and it's one of my pet peeves, and I really want to help everybody that I see. I'm working out, I'm in a class, and we're sweating, and you've just detoxed all these toxins, and it's really great, and you feel really great, and your hormones are great, you're happy. And then I see women drink, Arrowhead water from these conventional little packages, and they're just drinking in this microplastic and these toxins right back in. And so that's not a great form of hydration. And so 60% of our bodies need water, and it's what's gonna just be a top priority in any wellness care. So you have to invest in a quality filtration system. Are all of them perfect? Probably not. But we have to do what we can. And I hope that the more technology gets better and more entrepreneurs get creative and this becomes more of a top priority, that filtration systems will get even better. And I like alkalinizing my water to try and get the minerals back in there. And these are the two companies that I like, Alkaviva and PureFX. You can go to their websites here and look them over, but I highly recommend investing in a quality filtration system at a minimum. So now what do? We have this information. We understand that there are environmental triggers that are looming around us. This is not a time to get paranoid and feel like you're doomed and, the world is very toxic. It is, but we have to make the changes that we can in our own capacity, and that starts with you. And the good news is your vote is in your purchasing power. So the more we purchase these conscious brands or these more aware brands, the more the marketplace starts to, clean their act up, hopefully. But in terms of you, the way we're going to get to the root causes is, number one, you got to remove the triggers. So everything you've learned and all the lists I've given you, the add-ons, you're going to learn to read labels on your cosmetics and in your shampoos, everything you use for your beauty routines, your fragrances, your cleaning products. Read the labels. If there's no label, dump it. Just be more conscious of your immediate environment. And those little steps make huge steps in the long run, okay? And number two is we have to start opening the detoxification pathways. This is where our strategy is going to start in terms of supplementing and food and balancing out what is already there that's kind of looming in our body. I want you to just be aware this is not a detox. None of this program is a detox. When you hear about juice detoxes and intense 28-day detoxes with, this set of pills here and that set of, cleansing powder there, that is a detox. And detoxes on that level, they are very damaging to your hormonal system. Why? They tax your adrenal glands. And if you've had reproductive and hormonal imbalances, if we're dealing with PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, cysts, infertility, you name it, thyroid problems, there is some level, definitely, of adrenal imbalance, which causes progesterone imbalance and all of the stuff that we've already learned and we're going to continue to learn. We cannot tax your system even more. What you need is to nourish and balance. You have to support your organ functions like your livers and your liver and your kidneys and your gut and your lymph system. You can do that easily. When you do these intense detoxes, it's just so draining on your system and it's not natural. It's not natural to purge your organs that intensely in such a short period of time. And so that will just decrease your adrenal function in about 2 to 3 months after you've recovered and gone back to your older patterns. What I'm teaching you is to be aware of your patterns and the environment that you're creating for yourself so that in the long run, these pathways can filter out what you're giving it, basically. And that we can only accomplish by supporting your organ function, not stressing them out. Fortunately, the way we're going to do that is by using herbal help. Nettle. You may have already known about nettle, and it's an herb that either gets a lot of credit or no credit at all. But nettle is loaded with essential trace minerals like iodine and magnesium and vitamin C that we're all depleted in. And nettle enhances liver function, and that's what we need. We are bombarded by a lot of toxins on many levels. We've already discussed them. We don't need to purge your liver completely. We need to enhance its function. It is tired, okay? And when the liver works, it cleanses and nourishes the blood. That's why nettle is associated with anemia and reviving and pumping up the red blood cells, okay? And so when you're anemic, a lot of people look into using nettle, and that's why, because it enhances the liver function and cleanses and nourishes the blood. On top of that, nettle boosts the adrenal and thyroid function. And that's why you're going to regulate your periods and your hormone levels are going to level off, especially the toxic estrogens. And eventually you'll see that in strong hair because your hand and your nails and your hair are kind of a byproduct of the health of your hormones and your liver. And so the beauty about nettle that is really underlooked is that it also has this ability to leach plastics and toxins out of your body. Why? Because it enhances liver function. And so these toxins, they will accumulate in your breast tissue, in your lymph nodes, in terms of nodules and your groin area, in terms of nodules and tumors and cysts, and even some cellulite. But by enhancing the liver function and helping your liver clean out toxins even better, those plastics and the heavy metals that are lodged in your liver start to get purged out as well. Your liver can start to filter out these things appropriately. And so you're going to start by drinking 3 tablespoons at a minimum. You can go up to 4, but at a minimum, drink 3 tablespoons of the loose leaf nettle that is in your herb kit. And you're just going to infuse that just like any normal tea. And you can drink up to 2 cups a day. The next herb is a very simple herb called lemon balm, Melissa. This herb is loaded with essential trace minerals, just like nettle is. And it also has antioxidants like quercetin and the phenomenal number one antioxidant, glutathione. Glutathione is absolutely essential and it's made in the liver. And it's the number one antioxidant that we can have in our bodies. If your liver is congested, if you're manifesting with cysts or endo or any reproductive challenge, your liver's not doing too well. So we are going to give it the nutrients and the antioxidants so it can start filtering the blood. We're going to support your liver function by letting it breathe a little, letting it do its job, and letting it manufacture more glutathione, because the more antioxidant power you have, the more your cells are regenerating and not dying. And everything starts to balance out in terms of your detox pathways. And lemon balm also balances adrenal function, and it also balances your blood sugar. And so what you're already learning is that all this is it's all combined, right? We're not just separating your liver. Your liver, we have to just detox your liver. What you've already learned up to now is all of these hormone imbalances, they're all working in different systems, but they all have to work together. We cannot separate them. That's why supplements on their own don't really work, because you're kind of just, it's not medication. That's great. But even you can get into a rabbit hole with supplements, because if you're just trying to clean the liver with curcumin to decrease the inflammation, you're not really doing so much for your adrenal function. So by using these herbs, we're working synergistically, and just one herb can do so much for your adrenals, your cortisol levels, your insulin level, your thyroid level, and your liver function, and your gut. I mean, look at how much this one herb can do. The great thing about lemon balm, if you have a lot of anxiety or have panic attacks, by looking at some heavy metal cleansing, aside from that, lemon balm also calms the mind, so it helps you sleep a lot better. And it also leaches out plastics and toxins out of the body that are just kind of sitting there in our tissues, and by enhancing that liver function as well. So you're going to drink 3 tablespoons loose leaf in a water infusion per day. You can drink up to 2 cups of this. You can actually pair nettle and the lemon balm. It's going to be a very, very strong tea, but it's what we do in herbalism. As an herbalist, you combine many herbs to get this synergistic effect, and just do it separately at first so you can get the taste of how each of them taste on their own, because these are medicinal dosages, so they're a lot stronger than the little bags you would get at the store. And so if you can mix them together, that's a big time saver, and you're just going to double up on the benefits. So what are we going to do about heavy metals? Heavy metals are everywhere. They're not going anywhere. But what you can do daily or integrate into your lifestyle is this phenomenal heavy metal detox smoothie. And smoothies are a really great way to get a lot of your nutrition and just power pack a lot of your antioxidants that are absolutely necessary to bind to these chemicals. Okay, we need to purge them out of your intestine, and by using the antioxidants and the vitamins and the fiber in fruit, you're going to get there a lot quicker. And so you're going to use this recipe, and you're going to see that there's 4 components in terms of your cilantro, Atlantic dulse, barley wheatgrass, and the Hawaiian spirulina that work together. And all of them do different things, and all of them bind to heavy metals differently. Cilantro binds a lot to mercury and aluminum, and Atlantic dulse actually binds to radiation. Okay? And barley wheatgrass binds to copper and cadmium and aluminum. And spirulina, aside from being an antioxidant full full of vitamins and minerals and trace minerals. That also binds to a lot of heavy metals such as mercury, aluminum, and copper and cadmium. So you're gonna shoot for this heavy metal smoothie once a day or once every other day. If you can do it once a week, that's fine. You're going to work on your level to see what you can handle. And this is a very filling smoothie because it has a lot of antioxidants. It has a lot of fiber. So see what you can tolerate in your day to day. So in continuing to support the detox pathways, we're going to really support the liver, as you've already seen. And one of the great ways to do that is by providing the liver with a lot of nutritional DIM. DIM is a molecule that's found in cruciferous vegetables, broccolis, cauliflower, cabbage, radishes, Brussels sprouts. Those contain sulfur that turn into a component called DIM, and that is essential for the breakdown of a lot of toxins, but a lot of estrogen, especially this xenoestrogen that we want purged out of our body, right? And broccoli sprouts or alfalfa sprouts in general, just sprouts in general, have high doses of DIM. Now, if you've ever read anything pertaining to hormones and estrogen dominance online, and you've heard, oh, you can take a DIM supplement, I highly don't recommend that because the research I've done is DIM is so sensitive to heat that the manufacturing process always involves heat. And I believe that DIM supplements are dead on arrival. So you're basically wasting your money and taking something that you don't even know is working. And the best way to support your liver and help it create more DIM and help it create more of an open pathway to filter out this stuff is by using food. And sprouts are really high in DIM. And so we're going to use this smoothie to get our goals met, to get our full share of DIM either throughout the day or every other day or throughout the week. Okay, so you're going to use this recipe, and notice it has more cilantro in it, and it also has Brazil nuts. Brazil nuts are essential because Brazil nuts are high in selenium. You only need about 4 a day, and in this smoothie that's more than enough. And selenium is really great for hormone function, especially thyroid function. And flax seeds will help to bind all those toxins, xenoestrogens, out of your body. And so this is a very cleansing smoothie, and it's very necessary. So now you have 2 essential herbs that we're going to integrate into your lifestyle, as well as these 2 smoothies. The smoothies are very filling, so whatever you choose, just think of it as a meal. It's not a meal replacement, but it will help to balance out a lot of the food modifications that we're going to start to make coming up, because now there are environmental triggers that we have to deal with first. We have to remove them, and that's what these smoothies and these herbs are going to help to do.
So I hope that you gained a lot of insight from this video and now are getting an understanding of how environmental triggers are actually just one part of an underlying problem that affects many systems in your body. Okay, and so there are many levels to this, and so we just covered the ones you really can control, the ones in your immediate environment for you and your family and your future. They're not even addressed when we talk about medication. So medication actually makes the problems worse and actually puts more toxins in your body because a lot of the medications are synthetically derived. There's a lot of polymers and plastics and preservatives. So we're just adding more fuel to the fire without addressing these underlying concerns. So I started with environmental triggers because they're big, but they are controllable. And now you have the tools in terms of your herbs and your smoothies that you can integrate into your lifestyle and your routines. So if you're ever exposed to it unknowingly, because we always are to a certain extent, you will always know and rest assured that you can cleanse your body, not detox it and harm it, but gently cleanse it and nourish it in the way that it's supposed to be, so that your organs can start working for you, even if you've been exposed. So we're going to move on and build on top of this, because we're not done with talking about triggers. We have to now talk about food triggers, because they are so part of our every single day routine. And there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of confusion about food. And let's start with the basics, and we'll tie into how food affects your hormones and what we're going to actually do about it, because there's a big strategy, and let's get into it.